In Cameroon, a landslide kills dozens.
Rescuers are still searching for victims at the aftermath. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanos.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. suspends LTFRB Chief Guadis amid corruption claims. Philippines joins United States in anti-submarine drill in southern Luzon waters. United States Congress braces for a highly contested House Speaker election. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres is deeply distressed over Israel's siege plans on the Gaza Strip. And the Writers Guild of America inks a new contract with Hollywood, ending their 150-day strike. Transport Group Manibela has announced that it will conduct a nationwide strike on October 16, Monday. This is to protest the alleged corruption in the approval of the franchise for public utility vehicles, or PUVs. Manibela Chief Marval Buena claimed that all of the members of Manibela will fully support and join in the transport strike. This involves those in Metro Manila, Calabarzon, and Central Luzon.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has ordered the suspension of Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB Chief Teofilo Guadis III, amid claims of corruption under his watch. The Presidential Communication Office said that the President has ordered an investigation into allegations that huge sums have to be paid to process transactions in Guadis' office. The suspension came after Jeffrey Tumbado, a former executive assistant to Guadis, disclosed that operators have to pay transport officials up to 5 million pesos to get route franchises, special permits, among others. Tumbado claimed that there were other accomplices from the Department of Transportation as well as from Malacanang. Meanwhile, Transport Chief Jaime Bautista said his agency has begun its investigation on the corruption allegations.
The Libreng Sakay program is slated for a revival this year, encompassing both the EDSA bus carousel and jeepneys. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, is targeting implementation in Metro Manila, ideally commencing in November or December of this year. A budget of 1.3 billion pesos has been allocated for the program, ensuring that free rides can be provided. On average, approximately 10 to 12 million pesos will be utilized each day to sustain the complimentary transportation services for the public.
The National Privacy Commission, or NPC, has issued a stern warning regarding the circulation and sharing of stolen data from PhilHealth without proper authorization or legitimate purpose. The NPC has said that individuals found in violation could face a penalty ranging from 500,000 to 4 million pesos, alongside imprisonment for up to 6 years. They urge the public to promptly report any illegal activities related to the leaked information. The Commission also emphasizes that further dissemination of this data may expose individuals to various criminal activities, including identity theft, fraud, and extortion, among others.
The Philippines and Australia are gearing up for another small-scale bilateral military exercise known as Don Caracha 2023, set to take place in Palawan. Scheduled from the 16th to the 27th of October, the exercise will include about 80 soldiers from both nations, focusing on counterterrorism and special operations. Preparations for the exercise commenced last Saturday, with both forces undertaking pre-exercise movements and conducting operation briefings. The exercise aims to boost collaboration and strengthen capabilities in addressing intricate security challenges on the Philippines' Western Front.
The Philippines and the United States are holding their anti-submarine drills in the waters of southern Luzon. JD Mahinay for the report.
Sama-sama drills are in the mid-stage of its agenda as the Philippines and the United States are holding their anti-submarine warfare drills or ASW off the coast of southern Luzon waters. The Sama-Sama drill kicked off on October 2 and will conclude on October 13, Friday. Naval Forces Southern Luzon said that an expendable mobile anti-submarine warfare training target was utilized to simulate the navigation of acoustic signatures of an enemy submarine. This to enable naval forces to practice and refine their ASW tactics. ASW drill is part of the Sama-Sama exercises 3-day sea phase that began over the weekend. JD Mahina reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
China has again laid claim over Ayungin Shoal, citing that the territory has never been once owned by the Philippines. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said Monday that the Philippines has no legal basis to claim sovereignty over Renai Jiao on the grounds of its comparative proximity to Philippine territory. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague favored the Philippines in its claims in the West Philippine Sea. This is after Beijing released its 9-dash line map. China, however, rejected that award, claiming that the Philippines contravened the stipulation of the United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Sea or UNCLOS, while the arbitral tribunal violated the principle of state consent and rendered an award in disregard of the law. China has long perceived the 2016 Hague ruling as illegal, null and void, and completely invalid.
The Philippine Embassy in Israel is currently in the process of verifying a report indicating a potential first Filipino casualty, while more are expressing the desire to be repatriated to the Philippines due to the escalating conflict. Israeli forces recently rescued 22 Filipinos, one of whom is receiving medical treatment at a hospital. Deputy Chief of Mission Anthony Mandap has confirmed an unaccounted Filipino, but emphasizes that a casualty has not been officially confirmed. In Gaza, 25 Filipinos are seeking assistance to return to the Philippines, and this number may rise as the conflict continues. Given the situation, the embassy strongly advocates for the indefinite suspension of all travel to Israel. Presently, travel between the Philippines and Israel remains unrestricted. Coming up, President Xi Jinping says that China-US relations would impact the destiny of mankind. The U.S. House of Congress braces for a new speaker election. And the UN voices concern over Israel's siege plans. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return.
Okay lang ba kasi nabili na itong unit. So, lilipat ka na. $15 years! 15 years siya nakatira sa ilalim ng tulay.
15 years kaming dinuduyan ng tulay. Yung bigla, pag ako naalala niya, siguradong nandiyan yan sa tabi ko. Kaya sana wag magbago si Ana.
Yung salitang pasasalamat sa kanya, pagka tinulungan ka niya, mag-thank you ka lang, okay na sa kanya.
Kulang ang salitang pasasalamat.
Kulat ka?
6 years ko na po siyang
Kahit di ba, nung nakuli kami, di ba? Nakuli kami lahat. Totoo ito ha, ina-expect ko pa alis mo na dyan na. Kahit naman yung interview ako, sabi ko na, naiintindihan ko kung papalis ako na dyan.
stop traffic on its tracks. Boxing, basketball, and beauty pageants. While there are thousands of beauty contests in the Philippines, it seems that there is still more room with the addition of Miss Cosmo World Philippines. Join us as we speak with Miss Cosmo World title holder herself, Miss Meiji Cruz, who is also the chairperson of Cosmic Beauty OPC, the company responsible for bringing the Miss Cosmo World Philippines pageant in the country.
Beauty pageant is a celebration of heritage and one's culture. So I'm representing my country, I'm representing my own heritage, and for that, I'm already the winner.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Matanang Agila International. Amid their political and economic rivalry, Chinese President Xi Jinping believes that relations between China and the United States would impact the destiny of mankind.
中美关系啊，是世界上最重要的关系。面对变乱交织的世界，中美两国如何相处，这决定着人类的前途和命运。
Xi reiterates that Beijing has 1,000 reasons to improve China-U.S. relations, but not one reason to ruin such ties. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer backs these sentiments, saying the United States and China will shape this century. Schumer says Washington and Beijing should manage the relationship responsibly and respectfully.
7 analysts say evidence is mounting that China is nearing breakthroughs with nuclear-armed submarines. This report comes backed by the research of 3 Asia-based military attachés who also assert that China will have its Type 096 ballistic missile submarines operational before the end of the decade. Naval Technical Intelligence Analyst Christopher Carlson, one of the researchers, predicts China's new powered vessels will be very hard to detect. Analysts say China's Type 096 submarine is comparable to state-of-the-art Russian submarines in terms of stealth, sensors, and weapons. Analysts believe the quietness of China's new vessel is aided in part by Russian technology. The experts also detail potential breakthroughs in specific areas such as pump jet propulsion and internal quieting devices based on imitative innovation made by Russian engineers. Neither the Russian nor the Chinese defense ministries responded to media's request for comments.
Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo have concluded their trilateral maritime drills that simulated intercepting North Korean smuggling vessels in the waters of Jeju Island. The South Korean Navy said that the 2-day exercise was the first of its kind in 7 years and serves as a follow-up to the August summit in Camp David. This is part of the 3 nations' commitment to ramp up cooperation in the face of threats from Pyongyang. The South Korean command noted the said drills were aimed at enhancing their deterrence and response against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Taking part in the exercises were South Korea's Yulgok-E destroyer ship, the United States aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan, and Japan's JS Hyuga. Meanwhile, the U.S. Defense Ministry said that its naval strike group will make a 5-day visit to Busan later this week.
Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives began the search for a new leader as the crisis in Israel injected fresh urgency into their struggle to heal the party's bitter internal divisions. Kevin McCarthy was dismissed as House Speaker in a stunning mutiny last week, orchestrated by the far right, leaving efforts to avert a looming government shutdown in a state of disarray. The ouster also raised serious questions over the future of U.S. military aid to Ukraine and, more immediately, over Congress's ability to respond quickly to a crisis like the weekend attack on Israel by Hamas militants. House Republicans are due to hold a meeting and a candidate forum to pick their new standard bearer, followed by a vote behind closed doors. The Speaker must be approved by a majority of the 433-member full House. However, with both Democrats and Republicans voting and no timeline for a floor vote, the lower chamber lies in limbo. Two declared candidates, McCarthy's longtime deputy Steve Scalise and Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, have been furiously working to lock in support, but a clear front-runner is yet to emerge. With the attack by Hamas that left at least 700 Israelis dead has prompted speculation about whether a leaderless Congress is able to react to an emergency. If neither Jordan nor Scalise can get the support of 217 Republicans, the lower chamber could temporarily approve full speaker powers for Patrick McHenry, who has the job on a caretaker basis but is so far restricted to ceremonial duties.
U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says Beijing officials said they would deliver the message to Iran to not allow the conflagration to spread. This amid escalating violence between Israel and the Palestinians. David Oria reports.
Middle East tensions spiked as Israel's enemy, Iran, and their Lebanese ally, Hezbollah, have praised the Hamas attack. Tehran, however, rejected any role in the military operation. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer asked China to use its influence on Iran to curb the spread of the conflagration.
We also, a bunch of us, made the request that China use its influence on Iran to not allow the conflagration to spread. We said they have influence with Iran in many different ways, and we asked them to do everything they could to not have Iran spread this conflagration through themselves and through Hezbollah.
Schumer is the latest high-level American official to go to China. He led a 6-person congressional delegation on his visit. This as Washington seeks to ease tensions with Beijing. David Oria from Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Guatemalan indigenous groups continue to block roads in Guatemala City. They demand the resignation of Attorney General Consuelo Porras and Prosecutor Rafael Curuchiche. Rose Papa Angela tells us more.
Protesters accuse Guatemalan Attorney General Consuelo Porras of plotting a coup d'etat against elected President Bernardo Arévalo. Porras demands security forces to vacate dozens of road blockades that indigenous groups started a week ago, demanding her resignation. The blockades have been up for over a week now. The protests, initially called by indigenous organizations from towns in western Guatemala, were later joined by university groups, teachers, doctors, and other unions and social groups in the cities. According to police, more than 100 sections of roads nationwide were closed Monday. These include the capital. Several businesses, companies, and markets have also closed their doors in rejection of actions by the prosecutor's office. Rose Papa Angeles from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine says Hamas' surprise assault on Israel is similar to Russia's invasion of his own country. In his speech,
the same evil, and the only difference is that there is a terrorist organization that attacked Israel, and here is a terrorist state that attacked Ukraine. The intentions declared are different, but the essence is the same.
In his speech during the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, Zelensky also accuses Iran of fueling conflicts in Ukraine and Israel. Russian President Vladimir Putin did not respond to Zelensky's comments. But reports say after Hamas militants carried out the surprise attack, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov asserts Russia is extremely concerned over the Middle East war. Peskov says Russia believes there should be peaceful resolution as soon as possible to contain the Israel-Hamas situation. Meanwhile, former United States leader Donald Trump says Hamas attack would never have happened if he was president.
When I was your president, we had peace through strength, and now we have weakness, conflict, and chaos. The atrocities we're witnessing in Israel would never have happened if I was president, would never have ever happened.
Trump also accused U.S. President Joe Biden of betraying Israel. He says Biden negotiated different deals with Israel, but did not do anything to execute those deals.
Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has conveyed his efforts to the Palestinian president, expressing his determination to curb the escalation of conflict following the unexpected Hamas attack on Israel. Crown Prince Salman also emphasizes Saudi Arabia's unwavering commitment to supporting the Palestinian people in their pursuit of what they claim to be their rights to the disputed lands. The eruption of intense violence comes amid speculations regarding Saudi Arabia, a nation that has never recognized Israel, potentially normalizing ties as part of a broader agreement with the United States. Analysts observe that the ongoing conflict has dealt a significant setback to any advancements in the normalization.
Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei denies Iran's involvement in the Hamas weekend attack on Israel.
میان رژیم و بعضی از افراد خود رژیم غاصب یاوه‌گویی‌هایی در این دو سه روز کردند و ادامه داره، از جمله اینکه ایران اسلامی رو پشت این حرکت معرفی میکنن. اشتباه میکنن.
But Khamenei says Israel has suffered irreparable failure in military and intelligence defeat from the Hamas attack. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani echoes Khamenei's statements, saying the allegations of Iranian involvement are excuses for the United States and its allies to support Tel Aviv's escapades.
Palestinian militant group Hamas threatened to execute the hostages if Israeli airstrikes continue targeting Gaza residents without warning, dragging off about 150 people in its surprise weekend assault on Israel. The threat came after Israel on Monday imposed a total siege on the Gaza Strip, cutting off food, water, and electricity supplies. Israel has been left reeling by Hamas' unprecedented sea, air, and ground assault, likening it to the 9/11 attacks on the United States. The death toll rose to 900 in Israel and 687 on Gaza. Hamas said that Israeli airstrikes had killed 4 of the hostages, where it later said it could start killing them itself. Meanwhile, Israel kept up its deadly bombardment of Gaza on Tuesday after the Palestinian militant group threatened to execute some of the around 150 hostages. The Israeli army said it had more or less restored control over the Gaza border after Saturday's mass breach by Palestinian gunmen. It said it had recovered the bodies of around 1,500 Hamas militants inside Israel, confirming the scale of Saturday's assault. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel planned to deploy unprecedented force. He also vowed to strengthen other fronts in the north against Hezbollah, where militants and Israeli forces exchanged fire for a second day.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made a plea to the opposition, urging them to unite in a national unity government without imposing any preconditions.
אני קורא למנהיגי האופוזיציה להקים מיד ממשלת חירום לאומית ללא תנאים מוקדמים.
He refers to the historical precedent of such a coalition formed on the eve of the 1967 Six-Day War, emphasizing the priority of defeating the Hamza terrorists first. In extending this invitation, Netanyahu has welcomed both the National Unity and Yesh Atid parties to consider joining the government. However, only the National Unity is currently involved in the subsequent discussions.
The Lebanese armed group Hezbollah has fired a barrage of rockets into Israel after at least 3 of its members were killed during an Israeli bombardment of southern Lebanon. Vin Pasqua has that story.
Hezbollah issued a statement that it had fired rockets and mortars on 2 Israeli military posts in Galilee. The Israel military said it identified a number of launches from Lebanon into Israel, which the Jewish state plans on responding to in kind. Hezbollah, the most formidable member of a regional network of armed groups supported by Iran, initially had no intention of going between the conflict between Israel and Hamas, but now has expressed every intention to take up arms if provoked any further. The Israeli military began shelling southern Lebanon after a cross-border raid claimed by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad (PIJ) armed group. Questions continue to loom about whether Hezbollah, a sophisticated fighting force with an arsenal of long-range missiles, will enter the war between Israel and the armed wing of the Palestinian group Hamas, which surrounds Israel on both sides. Doing so would elevate the current conflict into a two-front war for Israel, long considered a nightmare scenario by the country's military establishment. The Iran-backed armed group has avoided deeper participation thus far and denied involvement in the PIJ attack that took place, but has rallied in support of Gaza following their Hamas operation. Experts have said that Hezbollah's position could change if Israel were to launch a ground offensive in Gaza that would likely have a devastating impact on the besieged and tightly packed strip, home to more than 2.3 million Palestinians. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres was deeply distressed by Israel's announcement that it would initiate a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, followed by an attack by the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas over the weekend.
I am deeply distressed by today's announcement that Israel will initiate a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, nothing allowed in, no electricity, food or fuel.
The Israeli military said it had called up about 300,000 reservists and was imposing a total blockade of the Gaza Strip, cutting off food, water, and electricity for all occupants within the contested region. Among all of the chaos, Guterres still urged both sides to cease fire and release hostages on both ends.
This most recent violence does not come in a vacuum. The reality is that it grows out of a long-standing conflict with a 56-year-long occupation and no political end in sight. It's time to end this vicious circle of bloodshed, hatred, and polarization.
Guterres described the situation as extremely dire before the surprise assault by the militant group, adding that Israel's action would only deteriorate its current position in the region. While noting that medical equipment, food and other humanitarian supplies and personnel are needed, the Secretary General highlighted the need for additional relief and the safe entry of essential supplies into the area, which both sides must facilitate.
And I urge all sides and the relevant parties to allow United Nations access to deliver urgent humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians trapped and helpless in the Gaza Strip. And I appeal to the international community to mobilize immediate humanitarian support for these efforts.
Up next, a car barrels through the Chinese consulate in the U.S. Australia gears up for the Indigenous Peoples referendum. And American economist Claudia Goldin is awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics. Please don't go away. We've got more stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Inyong katuwang tungkol sa usaping ito.
Nasa puso dapat ng Pilipino to love what is Filipino.
Kaya dapat ihayag ng saloobin.
Kahit gaano kasi karami yung doktor natin, ay kung may bayad din, baliwala din.
Paano makakabili ang Pilipino ng bigas?
Himayin ang hinaing.
Gaano karaming pera bang kailangan mo para maging masaya ka?
Alamin ang pwedeng gawin.
So I think the lesson is, pag may fake news, i-correct ka agad ng people concerned.
Sagutin mo agad. Mag-reality check tayo.
Check yun.
Check
na check.
na
check. Double check. Check the check tayo dyan.
This
In Cameroon, at least 27 people are dead after heavy rains caused a section of a hillside covered in precariously built houses to collapse in the capital, Yaoundé. Jeff Sanidad tells us more.
Rescuers are still searching for victims after the deadly landslide shocked the district of Bankolo on Sunday evening. Landslides are frequent during the rainy season in the city of nearly 3 million people. Shacks on its many hills serves as homes. Local media reports that torrential rainfall caused a dam to burst. The dam contained a man-made lake situated on higher ground. The government says the death toll is now at 27. The search for bodies is still on. Distressed relatives watch as the bodies of some of the victims covered in sheets are driven away by firefighters. Jeff Sanidad for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A mass burial of earthquake victims was held Monday in rural western Afghanistan. This while families remain trapped in the rubble of their ruined homes 2 days after high-magnitude tremors killed more than 2,000 people. Ken Cruz has more.
Around 300 people were buried in an Afghan village near the epicenter of Saturday's 6.3 magnitude earthquake. Hundreds more are missing. In a nearby village once home to some 2,000 families, no buildings were left standing. Excavators scoop at the wreckage to retrieve belongings and bodies. Hopes of finding survivors, however, died out in some areas. Elsewhere, those still optimistic continue to dig with spades and pickaxes. The United Nations says 100% of homes were destroyed in 11 villages of rural Zendajan district. Ken Cruz for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
U.S. police shot dead a driver whose car crashed into the Chinese consulate in San Francisco and into the lobby of the building's visa office. Unverified footage on social media showed a vehicle inside the building with officers pointing their weapons at the driver's door as people fled downstairs and into the open. Reports say that authorities have been alerted and made contact with a suspect with an officer-involved shooting. Medics had tried to save the driver's life, but the person was pronounced dead. The right to pursue responsibility for the incident. Meanwhile, San Francisco Police Department Sergeant Catherine Winters said that the incident is an open and active investigation and is currently working in coordination from the U.S. State Department.
The European Commission launched a review of its development aid to the Palestinians after the Hamas militant group's attack on Israel. EU Commissioner for Neighborhood and Enlargement Oliver Vargheli said Hamas' terror and brutality had been a turning point and that the 691 million euros in aid had been suspended, pending a review of EU support for Palestinians. He added that all projects put under review and all new budget proposals, including for 2023, are postponed. Officials also stressed that the review applies only to development funding and not to the separate EU humanitarian aid budget for Palestinians. European foreign ministers are to hold emergency talks on the sidelines of a meeting in Oman on the situation in Israel and Gaza. The EU announced in February that it was contributing 296 million euros for the 2022 budget to help the Palestinian Authority pay civil servant salaries, pensions, healthcare, and infrastructure projects. The bloc says it would provide up to 1.177 billion euros in financial support from 2021 to 2024.
Colombians demonstrate in support of Israel and erase graffiti outside the country's embassy in the capital city of Bogota. This following a surprise attack on Israel by the Palestinian militant group Hamas, leaving hundreds of people dead. EJ Gonzalez reports.
Colombia's President Gustavo Petro compares Israel's targeting of Gaza in retaliation for deadly attacks by militant group Hamas to the Nazi persecution of Jews. Earlier, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant announced a complete siege of Gaza in a fight against what he calls animals. In response, Petro says, and these are his words, "This is what the Nazis said of the Jews." Writing on X, the Colombian president adds that democratic peoples cannot allow Nazism to re-establish itself in international politics. Petro says Gallant's words amounted to hate speech. And if allowed to continue, Petro warns it will only bring a Holocaust. Petro says terrorism is to kill innocent children, whether it be in Colombia or in Palestine. He urges the two sides to negotiate for peace. EJ Gonzalez for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Disturbing footage has circulated on social media involving Hamas fighters parading the streets with the naked and battered body of a German tourist on the back of a truck. Viewer discretion is advised. Catherine Ortula has the story.
The 30-year-old Shani Luk was a German tattoo artist who was seen celebrating in Israel intended for peace. This would tragically be her last dance, as attacks by Hamas militants would soon take over the event, capturing and killing her alongside hundreds of other partygoers. Luk was currently residing in Israel, was of German descent. She was a known peace activist and an objector of the mandatory military service in Israel. Despite being identified by her family as the lifeless woman on the back of the truck, her mother, Ricardo Luk, remains hopeful in a tearful video.
Man hat uns ein Video zugeschickt, wo ich eindeutig unsere Tochter erkennen konnte, bewusstlos im Auto mit den Palästinensern und wie sie den Gazastreifen abgefahren sind. Ich bitte jede Hilfe oder jede Neuigkeiten bitte zu uns schicken. Vielen Dank.
Catherine Ortula for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Australia, as the referendum draws near, voters will soon decide whether or not to give its Indigenous citizens a voice in Parliament. Morgan Goodfellow has the details.
Queensland voters this weekend will determine the considered alteration to the Australian Constitution following the First Nations Declaration. The Parliament of Australia has agreed to propose adding a new chapter, Chapter 9 Recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Peoples to the Constitution. If the election is successful, the Constitution will propend a body to be called the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice. This voice will allow First Nations people to make representations in Parliament relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander matters. This referendum is a result of many years of deep thinking and consultation within widely diverse Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities from across the continent. Supporters of the bill are encouraged to approach the debate in a respectful and truthful way, finding out the facts before casting their vote and not to be misled by the misinformation being spread leading up to October 14th. This is an opportunity for Australians to honour the nation by harmonising the equality of First Nations peoples of this land. In Townsville, Australia, Morgan Goodfellow from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected and on point.
The United Kingdom's National Health Service commemorated its Diamond Jubilee on its service to millions of people in Britain. From the United Kingdom, Sarah Alcantara for the details.
July 5 marked the 75 years of the UK's National Health Service. The NHS treats millions of people every day. It's the UK's healthcare backbone and the pride of Britain. In celebration of this major milestone, NHS England and Fujifilm UK launched a photography competition, an opportunity to capture meaningful moments and personal stories by all whose lives have been touched by the NHS. One of the most coveted awards went to Emmanuel Espiritu, a Filipino nurse who won the Our People category. Noel, as is known by friends and family, works as a senior anesthetic nurse for West Middlesex University Hospital.
And I can tell my grandkids that I used to work for the NHS. And I have a mark for the NHS. I have my winning photo in the NHS. She's one of the oldest staff member at West Middlesex Hospital. She has been working at West Middlesex for 47 years. So she had her retirement party last March, and my wife, her colleague, asked me if I can do a photo of her so we can give her a physical gift when she retires. That's how I came up with that photo.
Filipino nurses play a significant part in the day-to-day operations of the NHS. International demand for nurses is on the rise, with the Philippines being the biggest exporter of nurses in the world. An estimated 30,000 Filipinos work in the NHS, making it the third largest ethnic group in their workforce. During the height of the pandemic, the momentous breakthrough of the COVID-19 vaccine was first administered by a Filipino nurse, May Parsons, a veteran nurse of 17 years in the NHS. Far from home in their families and often working long shifts, Filipino nurses in the UK are not without their personal struggles. Masking their own homesickness by working long hours, often to sustain the financial needs of their loved ones back in the Philippines, and of course, saving up for an opportunity to fly back home for short vacations. Known for their resilience, compassion, and hardworking nature, the Filipino nurses are certainly part of a huge team of dedicated workers, making a positive difference in the lives of many patients and the pride of the healthcare industry, not only in the UK, but around the world.
Nursing is not just about doing all these technical stuffs, but also being someone who get to support your patient physically, emotionally, even mentally, and spiritually.
Being raised as a good Filipino, so I just add in the good things about other people's culture and subtract the bad things, and that's how I go on with my life here.
3 words that does describe a Filipino nurse for me is number 1, resilient, hardworking,
and loving.
I am Sara Alcantara, London Bureau for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Nobel Prize in Economics is awarded to American economist Claudia Goldin for her research that has helped bring understanding to the role of women in the labor market. Arlene Ocampo tells us more.
77-year-old Harvard professor Claudia Goldin is the third woman to be awarded the prestigious Nobel Economics Prize. Goldin was given the nod for having advanced people's understanding of women's labor market outcomes. The jury says by studying the history of women in the U.S. workforce, Goldin demonstrated factors that have historically influenced, and in some cases still influence, the supply and demand for women in the labor force. The prize committee notes that globally, about 50% of women participate in the labor market. This compared to 80% of men. The committee adds that women, however, are said to earn less and are less likely to reach the top of the career ladder. The Nobel Prize winner thanks her students for helping her get to where she is now.
I am a teacher. I am a professor. I could never do research without doing teaching. Teaching and research are one. Teaching, in fact, is the handmaiden of research. When I teach, I am forced to confront what I think is the truth. I am forced to confront it by telling my students, and they're pretty smart. And if I don't know what I'm talking about, they know it. And so therefore, I deeply thank my students, my undergraduates, my graduate students who push me to the frontiers of knowledge every day. They ask the difficult questions. I could never do research. I can never be where I am today without them. So thank you very much.
Arlene Ocampo from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Significant disruption hit Scotland's rail network with several lines closed and speed restrictions in place. Dozens of flood warnings have also been issued. From the United Kingdom, Hilary Mendoza has the report.
Parts of Scotland saw a month's rainfall in 24 hours as motorists had to be airlifted to safety. 10 drivers were rescued after becoming trapped due to a series of landslips on a main road near Inverary on the west coast. Flooding caused by the downpours saw kayakers paddle down submerged streets in the Inverclyde area. Train services were cancelled or finished early, and motorists were advised to delay travelling if possible. The Met Office issued an amber warning, meaning there is a danger to life across parts of the country. Reporting from Edinburgh, United Kingdom, I am Hilary Mendoza from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected.
Coming right up. The International Monetary Fund warns of stubborn inflation and weaker global growth in 2024. NBA rookies shine in the preseason tournament. And the Hollywood writers' strike has formally ended. Catch the latest in business, sports, tech, and entertainment. Mata ng Agila International will be back.
Unity said that its chief, John Richitiello, is resigning as president, CEO, and board chair after the company drew backlash on its new runtime fee scheme. The announcement follows weeks of animosity that began when the firm said it was going to charge 20 cents every time a Unity-backed game was installed on any device. 10 days later, Unity released changes to its new policy. This, however, only addressed concerns people had with the runtime fee. Tech industry veteran James Whitehurst will temporarily step in as CEO while Unity conducts a search for its next chief executive. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, has lifted its global inflation forecast for year 2024. The IMF hiked its projection for the pace of consumer price increases across the world to 5.8% for next year. The fund sees a global growth of 2.9% for next year, down from 0.1% from its outlook in July. Its forecast for this year remains unchanged at 3%. Chief Economist Pierre-Olivier Gorinchas also warned central banks to keep policy tight until there is a durable easing in price pressures. The call for vigilance on inflation comes as it also cut its forecast for economic growth in 2024. The fund also expects inflation to remain above central bank targets until 2025. Analysts say the surge was spurred by factors including coronavirus pandemic, supply chain disruptions, fiscal stimulus, strong demand, and a tight labor market in the U.S., and food or energy disruptions as a result of ongoing global wars. Tech company Humane has given a sneak peek of its upcoming artificial intelligence, or AI, pin at Copernicus Paris show.
And that the computer would disappear. And we agree.
The AI pin is a new wearable designed to resemble the iconic communicator badges often seen in science fiction films, as showcased by models during Copernicus Spring-Summer Show. Humane describes the pin as a screenless, standalone device and software platform specifically developed for AI applications. This innovative wearable does not require pairing with a smartphone and is powered by an undisclosed Snapdragon processor. Humane has set the date for the full unveiling of the AI pin on the 9th of November 2023.
In the NBA, two of the league's brightest young stars faced off for the first time as Chet Holmgren and the Oklahoma City Thunder defeated Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs in their preseason match 122-121. Holmgren finished with 21 points with 9 rebounds and 2 blocks in 16 minutes, while Wembanyama recorded 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals in 19 minutes. Last year's number 2 overall pick Holmgren, who missed all of the 2022 to 2023 season due to a foot injury, hit 7 of his 10 field goal attempts, including both of his shots from the three-point range. This year's first overall pick Wembanyama, meanwhile, shot 8 of 13 from the field, with 2 of 5 from the three-point range. This was the first time the youngsters played against each other since 2021, when they squared off in FIBA Under-19s. The pair will meet again on November 14, but this time in their first NBA matchup as part of the in-season tournament. Amazon MGM Studios have released the first trailer for The Beekeeper, the action film that stars Jason Statham. Statham plays Mr. Clay and starts off with living a peaceful life as a beekeeper. It then unfolds that the title of the movie holds another meaning, that Mr. Clay was once part of a secret and powerful organization known as Beekeepers. With no one to trust, Statham is a one-man army on a mission to take down the fishing company's entire chain of command. Alongside Statham, the movie also features fan-favorite actors Josh Hutcherson and Jeremy Irons. Directed by David Ayer, best known for directing Fury and Suicide Squad, The Beekeeper will be in theaters on January 12, 2024. After nearly 5 months, the Hollywood screenwriters' strike has formally ended. Bernadette Manuel has the scoop.
The Writers Guild of America, or WGA, announced Monday that it ratified a new contract with Hollywood and television studios, finally ending a nearly 150-day strike that shut down film and TV productions. The WGA, in a statement, said 99% of its members voted in favor of ratifying the 3-year contract deal. The labor union added that of the 8,525 valid votes cast by its members, 8,435 voted yes and 90 members voted no. The term of the agreement is from September 25 this year through May 1, 2026, allowing writers to get back to work. The WGA revealed that the tentative agreement will be giving writers increased pay, health and pension contributions, as well as new foreign streaming residuals and viewership-based streaming bonuses. The two parties also reached a deal regarding concerns with artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, the WGA encouraged the AMPTP to negotiate a deal with SAG-AFTRA, which represents actors. Bernadette Manuel for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
And to send you off today, here's a quote from American singer-songwriter Willie Nelson. Once you replace negative thoughts with positive ones, you'll start having positive results.
It's so difficult to think positive with just everything that is going on around this world. But something that does help me is remembering what is in my control and what is not in my control. What is in my control is how I react to the people around me, how I react to my own successes and failures, and how I can also help everybody as much as I can.
I think one way to do it is to just continue being kind to one another within your small world, and to keep praying for what's been happening around us.
Hopefully that will give you a little bit of positivity amidst everything this week. That's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie, Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point. Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International as your trusted news source, keeping you connected to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.